Okay, we are very honored here at GSL this year to have make sure I get it right, the Fisher Body Craftsman's Guild. John Jacobus and his associates. We're very fortunate to have them here and have them bring their beautiful models and travel to Salt Lake City. And the International Model Car Builders Museum is sponsoring this seminar, so we have a hand for them too as well. So without further delay, thank you again, John, for you and your associates being here, and we look forward to this seminar. Thank you very much. Okay. Can everybody hear me here?
Yes.
It's our pleasure to be here, and a number of years over the years I've contacted Mark about possibly getting the Guild people out here and their models to join the new modelers, the championship modelers. And that's always been one of my dreams, was that he'd be receptive to that. I came out here in 2007 and made a presentation about the Guild and saw all the fantastic, superb, detailed model work that you guys do. And I still wrote that letter to Mark again and again saying, I really hope that the Guild can come out here. We really think that we have a lot of things in common, a lot of common values. We are interested in craftsmanship, artistry, detail, scale fidelity, workmanship, beautiful paintwork. Those are all the things that the Guild is concerned about, or was concerned about. Even though the Guild was discontinued in 1968, all of us are still interested in those things as a hobby, and we really enjoy bringing in models to shows and showing them off. We've had a number of wonderful reunions over the years at GM Tech Center, up in the Boston MFA, out in Phoenix. And we've always had wonderful participation from the Guildsmen and dusting their models off and being out there and supporting the idea of educating people about what the Guild was all about. And this was just another wonderful opportunity to do that. And Mark called me in the summer and said, let's get the Guild people out there, and had a wonderful reception. And all these people have volunteered to be here. And
oh, sorry.
Okay, there's Newell. Hi, Newell. How you doing? I know, man. We're sorry.
Sorry about that.
Newell is a native of Salt Lake City person, and we've tried to get him to come out to a lot of our reunions, but he's always too busy, and we're glad to have him with us today. He's going to do a little talking, and some of the people that are going to follow my talk include GSL XXV, auto designer, and Tony Simoni from Boston, Tony Mazzola, Bob Lawn, Jeff Jones, and Newell. They're all going to be giving a little 5-minute vignette about their involvement in the Guild and what it all meant. So anyway, I'll get on with what I'm supposed to be doing here, talking about the Guild, and we have a lot of images to show you. And I also talked to Mark Gustafson today about the problem that we both have in common, which is preservation. What are we going to do with these models? You saw the models downstairs there. They have hundreds of hours invested, all of them. They're antiques. They're 40, 50, 60 years old. What are we going to do with them? And he says the same thing. What are we going to do with all these beautiful models that you guys have created? So that's the issue that we're facing. And hopefully when we're here, we'll be able to talk about that with everybody. Okay, I was a Guildsman 1961 to 66, and I was a state winner. And in 1964, I got interested in looking into the history of the Guild. I always wanted to know what happened to some of those famous Guild guys like Art Russell. He was a national winner. what happened to that guy? Did he ever do anything? Was he an artist, designer? How did he contribute to society? And I kind of got off on that kick. And I've been on it for like 30 years now, talking to Guildsmen, trying to learn about what they did with their careers. How can I connect it? Can I connect it to the Guild? Or how do I learn about them? And so I worked as a volunteer for the Smithsonian in Washington, D.C. That's where I live, in that area. I asked them to help me collect the Guild models to preserve them. And so I spent a number of years contacting Guildsmen. Although at that time we had the old time method, which was the phone book method. Today you can use people search and look up a lot of these people. You can Google people. And I was able to obtain their models through donation to the Smithsonian, and they have a very nice permanent collection of these designs today. They put together an exhibit of these on the National Mall for 10 years it was on display. And after that, I had a chance to write 2 books about the Guild. I collected so much information, contacting everybody, I was able to write a couple of books. And those books, you'll see those books tomorrow if you come down to the vendor sales. So anyway, I'm going to get to the slides in a minute now. That's easy now. We're going to be talking about design, which was one of the primary goals of the Guild, and also the craftsmanship, together, which make up the aesthetic of what the Guild was all about. We're also going to talk about auto designers and product designers, because the Guild inspired these people to pursue careers in those areas. They pursued many other areas. My focus was on auto designers and product designers. That's what I was interested in. The Guild was a corporate outreach program long before anybody invented the words. General Motors was into that. The public relations bonanza. It was a talent search and a recruiting tool. So you joined the Guild, you build models. If you won a national scholarship, you had a chance to pursue a degree in college in art or design or industrial design. And from there, you were able to build a portfolio. You were able to get involved in some kind of a design activity, automobile design or product design, or the industrial design field in general. So the boys made in the 1930s, they made a 1/18th scale Napoleonic coach. And a lot of it was scratch built. And you could buy a kit, but the kit was blocks of wood. You had to carve the wood, you had to shape the wood. So it really was a lot of scratch building. You had to make your own hinges and folding steps and all these things to produce the coach. And the model car was a kind of a free-form design of your dream car. And that was a 1/12 scale model. So these scales are larger scale than your scale. We still have many things in common in terms of design and craftsmanship that we're concerned about. In 1968, they discontinued the Guild because the corporation decided to get out of the outreach, educational relations and outreach area. And we won't talk about whether that was good or bad. That's a whole other topic. Have lunch. That's something you have lunch over down at the pub down there. In 1984, they discontinued Fisher Body. Now, Fisher Body collected a lot of these Guild models. When a person won a national scholarship, like Gary Graham, they offered him $1,000 or something like that to buy the model to put in their collection. They developed the most eclectic collection ever of these models. When they discontinued the division, all these models were, sorry, I can't even say the words, they were just disposed of. They disposed of them to antique dealers and collectors. Once in a while, we'll see some of them on eBay for sale. As we all know, General Motors was never particularly interested in their heritage. They are now, but back in those days, they really didn't care. It wasn't really part of their business plan to collect museum things. Even though Henry Ford had a good idea, General Motors didn't think that was something they want to do. They didn't want to have their violin in a case. Anyway, let's talk about the Napoleonic coaches real quick here and see if I can make this thing work here. Okay, 1/18 scale miniature model coaches, 1930, let's see, to 37, was a philanthropic endeavor during the Depression. The Fisher family started it. It ran for 2 years after the war. These are the Fisher brothers. They sold their Fisher Body Corporation to General Motors in 1976 for $50 million. This is the Fisher brothers with Mom, Margaret. This was the first family of Detroit back at that time. This was an ad which shows the old coach graphic, 1928, and we're going to redesign that coach to create the competition. And of course, the creator of the new coach had to have some design lines off of the famous coaches, and these are Napoleon's coaches. The top is his sacred coach from Coronation. The bottom coach is a coach from his marriage to Marie Louise of Austria. And basically, Walter Leuschner picked the best points off of this strip to create the new coach graphic for the Fisher Body division. Look me now.
Move your mouse point.
What happened to it? It was right there.
There you go.
Okay, there's the new graphic. Body by Fisher logo. They're going to create a three-dimensional model from this. They're going to build plans that young kids can follow. And they're going to have this competition, which they initiated in 1930. You're going to win $5,000 scholarship if you build the best coach, the most beautiful coach. And I talked to Jim Keeler about this earlier, and he's restored these coaches. He knows a lot about it. He's also going to be speaking later, as a matter of fact. This is the new trademark of Fisher Body Division. It shows the new coach graphic. This is the master model Napoleonic coach made by Fleetwood Metal Body Company in 1930. It was one of the last projects they did before they moved to Detroit and became part of Fisher Body Division. There's a side view of the Napoleonic coach. This is the 1/18 scale master model. These are the color schematic for the plans that the kids got in the mail when they signed up to be contestants and build the coach. Here's a metal trim kit. You'll see one right down on display, right downstairs there, which I think is going to be auctioned off when you have
to the museum.
Excuse me?
It's going to go to the museum.
It's going to the museum. There's that's the pot metal and aluminum kit that man has a tendency to build kits and simplify things to keep people participating, and that's what they did. The entrepreneurs in the world came forward with these kits, and the first year you actually had to make all those metal parts. Okay. This is another view now. On the right is the metal trim kit. On the other side is a lot of the mahogany pieces that are been sub-assembled for doors and panels and windows and seats. You see balsa wood seats. The upper right-hand corner is the DuPont brushable lacquers that each contestant got. You can see they're just small little quantities, specially packaged for this program. These are some young men looking at an ad in a Fisher Body poster in a Buick dealership. I love the knickers. Here's William A. Fisher, one of the Fisher brothers who became the general manager of the Fisher Body Division, with the first 4 winners from the Napoleonic coach competition. This is Gordon Drummond, 1932 national winner in the competition. This is a state winner coach made by Michael DeMira, Indiana. And you can see what a beautiful model this is when it's trimmed and finished. A lot of contestants made their own gold plate, others used gold leaf. There's a rear quarter view. This is Charles Gadd. He was a 1933 winner. He went to MIT, worked for General Motors in biomechanics research, and he invented the head injury criteria, which is used in crash tests testing by the federal government, and when you buy a new car with the 5-star rating system, his head injury criteria is used in determining those star values. And the man that invented it, Charles Gadd, was a Guildsman. There's his coach at Henry Ford. This is a restored coach we had at our 213 reunion. This is just to show you the vibrant colors. The interior view, folding steps, window sash for moving the window, had hinges and locks and fifth wheel and other moving parts. This is a rear view of the footman's step. They had a traveling coach competition, which is supposed to be a simpler version that got the younger kids interested in doing the Napoleonic coach. I don't know if that worked or not. This was around for a couple of years. It didn't last very long. First state award, $75. Okay. 1/12 scale model car competition. I have a couple of things I want to say about that. Okay. So the slides we have here on the model cars. The model cars are 40, 50, 60 years old, 37 to 68. We're going to look at a lot of images. We're going to look at them pretty quickly. And the idea is that just to give you an idea of what the design and craftsmanship looked like over the years. If you're a junior division person, if I say it's a junior award, they're like 12 to 15 years old. If it's a senior award, they're 16 to 19 years old. The states were broken into regions. These were competitive pools. Vermont was not a region. Vermont had to be grouped with many other states to create enough contestants to have a real competition. So there were like 20 regional areas. California was big enough to be its own region. If I talk about a national award, it was the top 8 models in the country. If it's a styling award, it's the top 18 models in the country. If it's regional, it's the top 40, and if it's state, first state, it'd be like the top 100. And this is out of thousands of entries, and I'm going to show you a couple images of the sea of models that they received. So first they made 2-doors and 4-door sedans. Then they opened it up to station wagons, sports cars, convertible passenger cars. And in 1963, they started the open competition. Open competition allowed you to explore different wheelbases, different passenger compartment arrangements. This led to new body designs and new freedom of thinking. The models were graded in design, they were graded on originality of design, artistic merit, practicality. They're also scored on craftsmanship, scale fidelity, workmanship, and painting and finishing. And we mentioned those when I started talking. The model complexities level, they started at solid top, where you made the model out of a solid piece of material, like a piece of pine or plaster. Then they had a convertible style, which required you to finish the interior. And then they had a hard top. There's a good example down there of what Mr. Semple did, 1964. Hard top with a finished interior was the most complex level you could ever attempt. I tried a convertible. It's very, very difficult. Okay, so we wrap that one up. Moving right along. How am I doing, honey? How's the time? We out of time yet? Oh, well, we'll just stay another half hour. We don't have to drive anywhere. We're right here, right? Well, Jeff's got to go across the street. No, okay. Okay, so on the left-hand side is Frank Reese. He's an industrial arts teacher from Detroit that designed the plans that contestants used to build the Napoleonic coach. Here he is on they're looking at the 1937 models, and on the left is the top national award-winning senior one right down on the table in front of him. And on the right side, the young man here is Frank. He's Walter Luschner. He designed the Napoleonic coach and the new logo. And of course, that's Bill Mitchell, second in from the left, and Theodore Hobbs next to him. They were the 2 top designers at Harley Earl's Art and Color section. These are some 1937 models made for the Guild. This is Richard Arbib, a famous industrial designer, with his 1937 award winner from the state of New York. It's a top view. They were really interested in aerodynamics, rear engines. Had these folding headlights. And the instructions in 1937 said, we're looking for stylists and designers that can do what we do. It was really quite clear what they were after. See, Geza, were you born then, or where? You're not even born yet. Had you made your first model by then, or no? This is the model made by John Roth in 1937. There were 5 Roth brothers that participated in the Guild: John, Vincent, Philip, Joe, and Herman. 3 of them won national awards. From Newark, Nebraska. He had used pieces of tin for the windows for this model. This is 1937 winners again, and on the right side near me is William A. Fisher. He's the president of the Guild. He's the general manager of Fisher Body Division. William Knudsen next to him, second from the right. He's the president of General Motors, and boss cat, Charles Kettering. And the young man below, in front of him, is Teddy Mandel. He's the 1937 junior winner. He's 14 years old. And then Charles Bangert, the tall young man with the beret, is the senior winner. World War II occurred, and the Guild was discontinued, and Fisher Body went into the war mode and produced billions of dollars of war material. This is M30 tank, Sherman tank. First one off the line that they made. Second most produced tank next to the Russian T-34. This is an ad, Fisher Body ad. Armament by Fisher. Shows a Navy anti-aircraft gun that they assembled. They made all kinds of things, including B-29 sub-assemblies, and not to mention the engines they made, aircraft engines. After the war, the Fisher Body Guild got started again. This is a coupon for either going to build a Napoleonic coach or a model car. A young man by the name of Virgil Exner built this 1946 national winner. He is his father would become the vice president of styling at Chrysler Corporation. His father made all those beautiful forward look fins. We just loved those fins growing up. I fell in love with them like everybody else did in Look magazine and Life magazine. And this is the son. It's the plaster model. He's 13 years old. He's going to win a $4,000 scholarship. He's going to become a Ford executive designer. His father and he teamed up during the 60s to do a series of retro futurism designs like the Duesenberg, Mercer, Stutz, Packard, Jordan, Playboy, Bugatti, and Pierce Arrow, and Renoir produced model kits of those. And I know you guys know all those kits. I know you know all those things. These were even I got into it. I even bought a brochure for the Duesenberg. I was just going wild over that stuff. Okay, so let's. These are some other views. Now this model was burned on the other side, so we're showing you the right side. There was a fire in the home. It destroyed some of that. That's a deep copper color. Rectangular headlights in 1946. Whole new idea, just a whole new idea. Those are polarized headlight lenses. The idea is to prevent glare, oncoming glare, but you had to have a polarized windshield to make it work. He hadn't really worked all that out yet, but that's still a safety idea that's on the to-do list. There's Virgil in 2004. This is Chuck Jordan, the second from the left. 1947 top national winner. He's going to become the vice president of design at General Motors in 1986. This is the model he made, 1947 top national winner. He made that when he was at MIT studying automotive engineering. This is him with the model. There's Chuck with his model. Chuck's model is located in the Henry Ford Museum. That model, by the way, is a reproduction of the original model, although the trim is the original. 1949 picture of the designers. GM put their designers to work on the Guild. They had these rotating platforms, and they could look at the models without handling them. They could do some dial indicator work to look at symmetry and make some measurements if needed. This is a 1949 national winner made by a 13-year-old. This model has beautiful compound surfaces made out of a block of balsa wood. Now, he said he did a paint job with a bug sprayer. I don't believe him. It's a metal flake paint job. He told me he used the Guild had this method where you get the old bug sprayer, grandma's bug sprayer. Great story, man. These guys had great stuff. This has a lot of custom car lines in there. That roof line looks chopped, don't you think, Phil? Chopped down a little. This is Ilya Rustinov, a GM designer. Lifetime career designer at GM Design, and his model from 1949 was a top national winner. Ron Hill was a top designer at GM and executive. This is 1950 junior winning national model. And there's Ron Hill. He also became the chairman of transportation design at Art Center School, where he served for 15 years after a 30-year career at GM. This is Ed Frazier. I heard somebody talking about Ed today. This is a model he made in 1951, winning a national award. This is in the Smithsonian's collection. This is a model by Bill Kaiser, 1952 national award winner. Bill was a professor of furniture design at Rochester Institute. What a great job that would have been. These are the Backen brothers, Wally on the left and Warren on the right. Warren's here with us today. He came down from Seattle. His model's on display. Warren has been a big supporter of the Guild reunions, and he's been to all of our reunions. And we've all gotten to know Warren more and more every time, and we just love his models and his enthusiasm. This is the 53 dripping wet right out of the mold. Models on display downstairs. There's their carved bumper and grille. Okay. This is the fitting brass trim around the window. It's kind of hard to see it, but the brass trim had to have pins soldered on there in order to keep the trim hanging into the plaster. I still don't know how to glue things to plaster, and I don't think anybody does either, but they use these long pins to do that. That all gets chrome plated. Here's a lathe setup. His father brought home an old motor and said, "Okay, son, you want an engine lathe? Here it is." And he innovated, put it all together, was able to turn his wheels, which are on that model, downstairs, out of aluminum. There's the finished model. It's a beautiful model. There he is receiving his award. There he is with the president of General Motors, Harlow Curtis, 1953. It's on the left side, and there he is in 2007 or 8 with his model. It's a model made by Will Kagi. Will is here today. Came up from he came here from Laverne, California, and Mildred, his wife, is here. Will is 82 years old. He just had his birthday recently. And this is his national award-winning model he made for the Guild. 1953, there he is receiving his certificate, scholarship certificate. There he is in 2007 with his model. This is a picture of the 1953 national winners, and on the left is Harley Earl. Harley Earl at this point is the vice president of styling at General Motors. And the reason that the Guild even exists, or the Guild, all these guys are doing all this design, is because of Harley Earl and his concept cars, his motoramas, which just drove everybody crazy that they wanted to do the same thing They wanted to emulate what they saw. There's Harley and his Y job. That's a concept car that got the whole thing going, got everybody just so excited, drove everybody crazy, and kids wanted to emulate that, and that's how the Guild survived year after year after year. It's a model made by Charlie Stewart, GM designer, 1954 Regional Award winner. It's a two-door hardtop. Here's a beautiful convertible made by Mr. Garner from Missouri. Forgot his first name. Anyway, I just love that design. It had some great features in there. Model made by Gene Izuno, 54 Regional Award model. Model made by Gary Graham. Gary's here today. Gary came down from Seattle to meet this Glacier, Washington. This was a 1954 First National winner. When we had our 2008 reunion, Gary said, well, I don't have my model anymore because General Motors and Fisher Body disposed of it and I don't have it anymore. So, typical Guildsmen fashion, he made his own. He made a reproduction. So, there's the reproduction, and that's downstairs. And those bullet headlights were copied by many kids many years later. They just can't get over that. The other thing that's important about this design is that it is believed that this model inspired the 1959 Chevrolet vertical horizontal fins. The rear horizontal fin. I'll give you that. I'm going to give you that. Can you see that? Can you see that at all? Here we go. Anyway, that's the idea. And that's the question always comes up, well, what did General Motors ever borrow from you? That's always the question. There we go. That's a little better view of that. It's a model made by Chuck Pelley, 1954 Scholarship. Chuck Pelley is a famous industrial designer. You may know his name. Got the Lifetime Achievement Award from the Eyes of Design in Detroit. And he is a founder of the Industrial Designers Society of America. It's a model made by a native son of Salt Lake City, Gilbert McArdle. This is a 1955 Regional Award winner. The design made by Gordon A. Bertrand. I can read that. Gordon A. Bertrand, 1955 Regional winner. And this is a good example of scale fidelity. I think he did a beautiful job of putting this together proportion-wise. What's important about this slide is that in 1955, Mitchell, the president of design, vice president of design, sent letters out to these regional winners saying, we will help you put together a portfolio to get in the design school that you want to get into. We can help you decide what the content of that portfolio. And that's a really nice perk for being a regional winner, I thought. I put together a portfolio to do that kind of stuff, and I didn't have any really good advice. Anyway, this is George Anderson. Let's see, where's George? George is here. George is here from GM Designer Interiors, and George came here from Phoenix, where he lives in the wintertime, and he's headed back to Michigan. And George worked on a number of show cars, and he also worked on several race cars. One of the race cars was a Cadillac-powered SCD2, and he also worked on a Chevrolet Wolverine. This was one of 65, 66. This is the model he built for the Fisher Body Craftsman deal in 1955. It has a integral Continental kit in the back. I'm going to show you that. And of course, when Tony did the placards, he put the actual a show car that was very similar to that. This is the model. Has a little more trim on there this time around. There's George with his model. It's a model made by Adrian Bruno in 1955. Senior winner. He's national winner. He's 15 years old, and he really did a good job of rendering what the personal sports car is going to look like. It's 1955. What are we going to do? inspired by a lot of European designs, and this is what happened. Leather interior. This has been restored for the 2008 reunion. There's a leather interior. Some other views of that model. This is the model made by Milton J. Antonick, 1955 top national senior winner. These are the three views that GM Photographic took of the models that they were interested in. And presumably these photographs were reviewed by designers in subsequent years to get or look for new design ideas or themes. They took a front view, a back view, and a side view, and that's how they recorded the Guild models. When we had the 2008 reunion, again, he said, I don't have my model because it disappeared and all the Fisher body stuff. So he built a reproduction, and I have some slides later on if we have time to show you how he did that. Used Autodesk Alias and numerical controlled machining to do that. We might have some time for that, I don't know. But how's my time, honey? Am I running out yet? Huh? Okay. A name that came up recently with the Model Builders Museum was Chuck Gibraltara. This is Chuck. This is him on the left there as model, 1956 National Award winner. He's like 14 years old. He became a well-known furniture designer, commercial and otherwise, and product designer. He won the Revell competition for model car he designed to combine the XKE and the Corvette, what they call the Sty Ray. And I know that you've been trying to reproduce that model for your collection. I've tried to contact him for you and have not been successful. This is a score sheet for his 1956 model. These are a couple of important people to the Guild. On the left is Bill Moore, and on the right is Art Russell.
Yeah.
Art Russell's 1956 Styling Scholarship winner right there. And Bill is going to be the 1956 Senior First National winner. And I'll show you that model right there.
Yeah.
They worked together and consulted on these models, and one of the rules of the Guild is that nobody could help you make the model, but you can sure talk to people about it, get ideas, and that's what they did. Oops, yeah. Oh. This is, we got a couple of how-to images. I know you guys have books full of how-to images. These are our how-to images. These were published in 1956. You're supposed to start out with a clay model to explore ideas. He made a poplar body, carved it out of poplar. He's working on the headlight areas there, fitting windshield, fitting the top covers for the pleated seats, putting the recessed chrome trim on the rear deck lid. He fabricated a brass bumper with silver solder. He's going to carve that to fit the body. He's going to fit it hundreds of times and filing, then he get it chrome plated. Here he is doing a rear taillight body area, fitting the Guild wheels, which were provided free, drive shaft cover. There are some of the pieces he had to make in order to make the model. I see inner door panels, steering wheel, seats, transmission cover, headlight bezels, and wheels there. These are the two models they made in 1956. On the left is Art Russell's 1956 Styling Award, and on the right is Bill Moore's 1956 National Award winner.
John?
Body in white, yes.
It's interesting that Art Russell ended up working at Revell, and Bill Moore designed Craig Breedlove's Spirit of America and the Spirit of America Sonic 1.
Thank you. I don't know all that, but I'm learning. See what I mean? I come out here, I got to bring my notebook with me. Thank you very much. 3 of these guys are going to be on the Craig Breedlove Land Speed Record team, including Bob Davis, whose model you'll see later on. I didn't get invited to be on any Land Speed Record team. I don't know where I was, but these guys were just in it. They were just involved in all this stuff out there. All went to Venice High School. They called it magical times. I tried to get data out of them. They said it was just magical. Too bad you weren't here. I said, yeah, I wish I had been there. So these are the regional winners from 1956, and on the front row is Mr. Gibraltaro, third in on the right, and from the right, and that's Bill Moore, fourth in. Getting ready to go on a cruise on Lake St. Clair. In the fall, they had Bill and Art put on a little guild exhibit at Venice High School. This is Bill's 1956 award winner from a different angle. There's the interior, beautiful interior. There's Bill at the 2004 reunion with his model. This is the model Art Russell built the next year, which won the first National Senior Award, $5,000 scholarship. I got this one for the Smithsonian for their collection. Art hated me for that. He's never spoken to me again because of it. Because he wished he'd never given that model away. He hates me and he hates himself. He never should have let it go. There's Art on the right with a GM executive doing a photo op. There's Art on the left with Boss Cat. So this is a picture of Art's model in the Smithsonian. This blew everybody away. We were just modeling away. We didn't know what we were doing. But when we saw that model, we cut that out and put that above our workbenches and said, that is where we're heading. That is the future. That's something we've got to really aim for that. This is Art's score sheet, 93% of points, the highest score ever received by a Guildsman, although others argue they were higher. But you can never get them to prove it. This is about a 1958 shot of Art on the left and Bill on the right with their models. They were both Art Center School students at the time. Getting ready to graduate and getting ready to tear up the world. Bill did work for Don Garlitz in streamlining dragsters, working on a 200-mile-an-hour dragster, which Don did succeed in, but I don't know if it had Bill's streamlined surfaces on it or not. That's why I have that there. Bill was a great illustrator, wildlife illustrator. He did many magazine covers for all the auto magazines. He loved to do ancient world paintings that he sold. Very, very creative soul. And of course, Art, I didn't say much about Art, but Art became a product developer. He worked for toy companies or whatever, like Mattel. He'd go into Mattel and an artist would show him what the latest Hot Wheel design ideas are, for example, and he would go home and reproduce those in 3D. Three-dimensionally work out all the detail and bring them back in to say, this is what this looks like. And Art Russell did not invent Hot Wheels. That was done by Harry Bentley Bradley.
Yes, correct.
Thank you. He called me on the phone one time. I will never forget that. I remember that call.
He's a character.
I remember that call. This is a model made by Bill Marks that was second behind Art Russell's design. It's a nice looking coupe sports car. This is the model made by Paul Tazzo, a career designer at GM, interior designer, head of Buick Interior Studios for like 20 years. This was a 1957 styling model that he made. The next year he won a national award. He refined the design, he refined the craftsmanship, he got more points and won a big national award. There's Paul with his model. Terry Henline is another person that became an important GM designer. He was a 1958 National Award winner. He's going to be the head of the Pontiac Design Studio. He's going to become head of the advanced design for GM up in Newburgh Park, California. He's going to become the director of design of the Hummer brand. There's his business card. This is a model made by Tom DeFazio, 1958 regional winner. Model made by Ron Pelbin, 1958 regional. Another view in color. John Sparnick's 58 styling model. He was going to be here but was not able to because of illness. Model made by Bill Malzahn, 1959 national winner. There's Bill with his award-winning model. Model made by Bill Scott, became a senior GM design executive. There's Bill, Gentleman Bill, with his white jacket and beautiful model. Model made by Peter Winnicke, 1960 National Award winner. Model made by Brian Pellman, 1960 National Award winner. I just showed you his regional award. The guys worked their way up, state, regional, styling, national. 1960 image of the young men looking at the models. They're at the banquet. These are the regional winners. And they're studying each other models, and in the back of their head is which one is going to win a national award? Because this is where they got their national winners from. Is it me or the guy next to me? Who is it? And the fifth model back on the right is the one made by Gino. Gino Simone's here tonight. Gino's model is down there along with his brother Tony Simone, and we're glad to have them here from the New England area. They dug their way out to get down here. This is a toy designer, toy inventor. Invented one of his successful toys is Glowworm, was on the market for 26 years for Hasbro. He had like 11 products on the top selling toy lists over the years. And he's basically into inventions and things of that nature. He was a Guildsman, winning a national award when he was 15 years old. And the year before that, he won a high award in the soapbox derby, winning $4,000.
What was the name?
Ace Edward Fogarty. There's Ronnie Steinhilber. Tony Mazzola will tell us more about him. Tony inherited the models made by Ronnie. Ronnie passed away in May 2000, and Tony's going to tell us more about this. These are his 1960 state model, disassembled, ready for assembly. 62 regional award, 61 regional, 62 styling with asymmetric lines, 63 regional award, and 64 regional award. He restyled the family van. You could do station wagons, but that wasn't a very popular body style. The model made by Ron Will, First National, 1961. Ron is here with us today. Did not have a steering wheel. It had a bar. His father had been in a serious automobile crash. He decided to design something to make a difference in that. And he came up with a bar that would come back and restrain the driver. And the controls were flush with a panel there that the driver could use rather than getting wrapped around a steering wheel. That model's on display downstairs. There's Ron. This is the Simone family from Providence, Rhode Island. Hey! Mom and Dad, Jerry and Nora. And we got, see on the left, that's Tony. I think that's Tony. Tony, Gino, and Jerry. They were all prolific guild model builders. They made 15 models that entered in the competition, many models that never got entered. They made so many models they had their own competitions before they decided to send them in.
Oh, cool.
They won $12,000 in cash and scholarships. Their models are all, two of the brothers' models are on display. Oh, three of the brothers' models, all three models are on display downstairs for you guys to look at. They're the boys. Gino and Jerry working on their guild models. They're the three brothers. Tony in the middle, he's up here at the table. Gino on the right in the back, and Jerry on the left. Did I get that right? I got it right. There's Tony graduating. He'd already won a $5,000 award at 15. Graduating from high school. There's the model that he made in 1961, same year that Ron will. He was the junior winner, and Ron was the senior winner. The Simones perfected the bubble top, designing and building, and the placards downstairs show how they did that. Gino used a different method, which was liquid catalyzed, liquid resin technique, whereas Tony used the hub and die method. If you guys want to do bubble tops, those are your guys to talk to. There's Tony on the left and Ron on the right, 1961 national winners. There they are in 2008. We got a picture of that this morning. I did. There's Gino's model from 1960. He's 15 years old. This is the model that used the catalyzed resin to make the canopy. And there are the two brothers, the two bros, Gino and Tony. They're here at the program. This is a national award-winning model in the Smithsonian collection made by James Green. National Styling Scholarship model made by Joe Arnold, and he and his wife are here today with us. Models on display. This is made of Spanish cedar, machined stainless. Model airplane dope, fuel proof. Styling Scholarship model made by Harry Shep, 1961, in the Smithsonian collection. Styling Scholarship model made by Richard Johnson, 1962, Smithsonian collection. Model made by John Jacobus, that was me. State of Norfolk, 1962. I got a letter from GM Styling saying, well, you know, you didn't really make it regional, but you might have some possibilities. Why don't you come up and see us? So I had a chance to go through GM Styling. I also got to see a lot of the award-winning models, which you had to see in order to participate in the guild effectively. You had to know what the competition looked like. It's a model made by Tom Covert, 1962 National Award winner. He's going to be the lead designer on the Hummer brand, working for Terry Henlon. There's Tom Covert with his model. Model made by Sam Shellman. This is a second state award winner in New Hampshire. I just think it's a wonderful design. It combined the old and the new. Very exciting model. I don't know what they were thinking about. There are a lot of beautiful models that never won national awards. This is a cover of a magazine at the MFA. It was kind of the cover girl model, cover girl design. Model made by Bobby DeMira, which was a regional award winner and a styling award winner. And he came, I think Ron Will may have popularized the idea of just finishing the occupant or the driver's side only. I don't know who did it. But then it became, you know, it was a model maker shortcut, I thought, and basically just made it easier to get the job done, and other people followed suit here. This is Sierra Gold, and Bobby used that color on all the models. He entered all 8 years, and he used the same can of paint. We talked about Bob Davids being at Revell, along with other people we mentioned, Art Russell and Jim, and this is a model he made in 1963, which won top national award. He worked in consultation with Art Russell and Bill Moore. They all went to Venice High School. They also were all part of that Craig Breedlove team. When Bob told him he had bigger things to do than go to the Craftsman's Guild convention he got a phone call from Bill Mitchell and said, you're coming. You're one of our big winners. You're going to have to be here. When he was there, he went to visit Bill Mitchell in his office, and they called Craig Breedlove up here in Bonneville, and they followed the action until the 407 mile per hour speed limit was set. Bill and Bob became very close friends, and Bob worked for Bill Mitchell in his private Studio X as a car designer. And he went on to do all kinds of things, including working in the gaming industry in Vegas. Developed first a handheld game called Bass Fishing. He manufactured that. He sold it. He quit that and went into being a vintner. He did everything. He did everything, and now he lives in Bermuda and just sits in his beach chair, I guess. I don't know. Just very, very successful guy. Just, anyway. Most complex level, like Mr. Semple's model, highly complex, very beautiful design. Everything's been worked out precisely. Here's Bob on my right. Model made by Bob Aikens, a scholarship winner. He was from my state, Maryland. He's going to be a Ford designer light truck. Now they had the open competition, which I mentioned earlier. This is an example of a 1963 open competition model. You can see there's something strange about the wheelbase. It's not rectangular. It is probably close to a diamond or a rectangular shape. And this gave a chance for the competitors to try new ideas and explore new ways of doing things. And I'm going to show you a couple examples of that. This is an open competition model with a completed interior, most complex level. Model made by Jeff Jones, who's with us today, age 14. Jeff is a master craftsman. He's a wood carver, had his own wood carving business at age 10. He's a prolific model maker, model builder, and also custom car designer, and is building a Mysterion full scale right now. He's going to tell you all about that, I'm sure. He's going to sell you his book. Model made by Tristram Walker Metcalf, 1963 national winner. There's the Sea of Models, 1964. There's Tom Semple's model right there. And I'll show you details of that. Tom is here today with us. And you'll see this diamond-shaped model in red down. That's another Demira. So we have the father building a coach, the two sons doing the model car, and then a cousin is going to be in the model car competition, winning a national scholarship too. So the whole family got involved. This is the John Demira model, 1964, 14 years old. This is a diamond wheelbase, open competition. Explore new ways of designing car bodies. It's a rear view, there's a front view. It's a styling scholarship in 1964 by Roland Painter. This is in the Smithsonian. Made out of plaster Paris. It's a model made by Tom Semple, 1964 first national senior winner. Was the highest complexity level. The model's on display downstairs. It's a spectacular model. I want you to all come down and see it. Somebody said they want to find out how he did the roof. And I said, you're not going to find it. He's not going to tell you. It's all confidential. They're not talking. Picture sent by Tom. Top view, front higher, upper elevated, side view. This is 1965. These are the Petrushka brothers, 1965 styling winner. National winner, he's like 12 years old in this picture here. It's a model made by GSL 1964 styling scholarship winner. He's already introduced himself. I'll be talking to you in a little while. These are some alternate views. This is truly an open competition model. This breaks all the rules. If you ask him how he designed it, he'll probably say, I designed it from the top. He can answer that. This is the model made by GSL XXV, won the 1965 National Award. Again, open competition. Fiberglass model. Rear view. On the left is GSL with his modeling made in 1959 at age 15. And GSL on the right, 1965 at about age 21, I think.
Right.
GSL is going to have a long automotive design career. He's going to tell you about that. Actually, we have 5 auto designers with us in this program. Geza, George, Tom, Ron, and who's the 5th? Oh, Bill Mihalik and George Prentice, Ron Konopka. We've got them all. We have a nice group of auto designers here to be with you guys. This slides remind me that the Guild was exported overseas to the GM subsidiaries, Switzerland, West Germany, and England. So there was a Vauxhall co-educational guild. There was a Opel West German co-educational guild. The Vauxhall was around for about 3 years, but the West German program lasted from 1965 to 1979. And there's a West German guild lady, guildswoman, with her model. This is a model made by George Prentice, which is on display downstairs. He was a career GM designer. These are some alternate views of that model. George was a technical stylist or technical designer. One of the tasks he said that he worked on was when they finished a full-scale clay model, you couldn't store them all, you couldn't keep them all, so you had to digitize them or somehow get the date off that model, off that design, and that's what he did. He can tell you how he did that. I don't know how he did it. Age 20 years old. Model made by Bud McAuldy, 1965 styling winner. He's going to be on the Ford Taurus design team in 1986 and the 1994 Mustang design manager. It's a Guild ad, 1965, showing open competition model. Design and build a car of the future and win yourself a future. It's a model. This is the surface development I did for my 1966 model, which is on display downstairs. I learned that at the Art Center. I had a summer, went out there for a summer and learned model making 101 and surface development 101. It's a upper clay model used for making plaster casts for the fiberglass layup, upper half, lower half clay model, finished model. Model made by John Milberg, 1966 second national senior winner. Three-wheel design made out of Renwood. There is John with a GM executive with this model. Model made by Ken Kelly, 1966 National Award winner. These are the 1966 senior winning models with the GM designers that graded them and scored them. 3 out of 4 are open competition models, and this model here is made by that Demira cousin, Joseph Wayne, or Wayne Joseph. Junior, 1966 junior national winning model made by Dale Nagy in the Smithsonian collection. 1966 sea of models. I don't know how many thousand that is, but that's a lot of them. Model made by Dennis Little, a GM designer. It was a third state, Ohio, but it won a national styling scholarship because of excellence in design. Model made by Gary P. Card of Rhode Island, second state award. Model made by Robert Lawn. He's here today. That's a 1967 styling scholarship winner. The Guild pushed the idea of making models out of polyurethane because it'd be quicker and easier to carve them. This method was developed by Dave Rossi of GM Design. And unfortunately, the Guild is going to be closing very shortly. In 1968, the Guild will be over when this technique is used. Oh.
That's the Australian version.
Yes.
Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh.
New Zealand entry.
No wonder it was getting all goofed up. Okay. Got this team back on. Okay, well, the Guild is wrapping up now. So this is a 1966 styling winner made by Tom Grabowski. This is a fuel sipper, fuel economy, very similar in proportion to the Smart Car. Well, this was 1968.
Much better.
This is made with the polyurethane method. In 1968, General Motors shut down the Guild. It also shut down all their educational relations programs. Ladies and gentlemen, that's the end of my presentation. At this time, we're not going to... It's amazing. I'm shocked. I must have left something out. I know I did.
I know.
I had to leave something. Okay. Our first speaker is, as you can see, is GSL. Here's the microphone. Is this microphone right here?
Can you hear me? Yeah. The only thing I want to say is, the Simone brothers, when you were young, you guys were good looking. I love seeing those old pictures because it's what we were back then, you know. And I can still recognize you as to who you are today, but you guys were good looking. Okay, we're going to we'll talk about some sketches here, but you know, when I was downstairs and I was talking to a number of you guys, we talked about how long it took to make these models. We came across a word that the Guild invented, and it was called stick-to-itiveness. You guys remember that? I don't think it's a word. I don't think it's real. But we had it in all the publications. Remember that? And my father used to give me a definition as well. And what he said was, if you start something, you better finish it. And then if you do it right or don't do it at all. Okay. But the best advice he ever gave me was, whatever you do, enjoy it, and enjoy the journey. And that I've kept with me, and I've tried to give my kids also. And my journey was really special because I spent 46 years in the industry. I finished up my 7 models, so that made my dad happy, because what he was saying was, aren't you finished yet? You know. So anyway, I went on to work for General Motors for 15 years in design, and that's after finishing Art Center School. And after that, Volkswagen for 3 years. Then I worked with Volvo and Ford for the following years to make up 46. Okay, So what I'd like to show to you today basically is a lunch hour project that I really liked, okay, that involved 2 race vehicles that we did. Now, and I chose this because you guys like models, and we all like building models, you know. But initially, I started out saying, you know, why not show some of my additional, or new, I shouldn't say new at that time, but original sketches back in the day, and when I first started GM. And it's so funny because I went back in the archives and I looked at these sketches, and I almost fell over because the date on it is 1968. And I said, I can't be that old, you know. So anyway, I think I just move this and it goes forward. I'll go through these quickly.
The right click.
No, use the roller.
Here, I'll just roll it. Yeah. Now, the neat thing about these sketches is these are called beginning sketches. This is where the magic happens. Some designers call it the money spot, the money shot. Yeah, money shot. And we did tons of these at GM, and these are 8.5 by 11 sketches with ink pen and dry markers, right? And we can't use those dry markers anymore today because everything's carcinogenic. But we still today do sketches before we go into the computer or anything else. A sketch is always the first thing. I was talking to my buddy Tom here, and he says, first you do the sketch, and then you do the model, you know. So anyway, we did a lot of sketches, and this will show, did these for Oldsmobile way back when. Some for Oldsmobile, some not. But the joy of this was actually trying to come up with some originality. And a lot of these are just, like I said, real quickie guys. But they had emotion, and they weren't stagnant, you know. Can you guys see okay? This was kind of neat. Also, I have to say that when I dream at night, I dream of being at GM for some reason. I was only there 15 years, but I'm still in the studio, you know, and it was.
Those nightmares too.
No, it's not. I know. It was such a good time because it was during the muscle era, you know, muscle cars, and so we worked on all the GTOs, the Firebirds, and 442s, and where all the energy is, you know. It was just really neat. And then the product planners came in, and then I had to leave. It was just too much.
Then the government came.
So, you know, we did tons of these little graphic things. And, you know, I taught at Art Center College of Design, and I'm trying to get the young designers to say, or to draw, so you don't have to draw the whole car. Only draw the parts that you want. And then it makes it quicker, you know. So, less is more. Here's a more finished sketch. Oh, and this sketch, now, if I can get it there. Back in the old day, we didn't have the ability to blow up sketches. So what we used to do, if you wanted a big sketch, you made it sketch, or you made a big sketch. And this was 5 feet long. And we used a lot of chalk and a lot of ink on it. But anyway, it was kind of fun. Oldsmobile was one of my favorite studios. And here, this is a little sketch that was, it's an idea sketch, and then what we did is we went a little further and did another sketch. I sent this sketch to one of my buddies, Tom Atano, over at Mazda. Oh, wrong one. Right there. And he has it on his wall of fame, you know, because he said, Gaze, send me your favorite sketch you ever did at GM. And this is one of my favorite sketches because it took about 45 minutes, and I'm not kidding. Because you do the little sketch first, and then you just throw it out, and then, of course, it led to some production stuff. We have to have fun here. This particular sketch, this was a little thing done in the Oldsmobile studio when we had the tornado. Oh, it jumped. I'm not doing that, guys. Okay. And this was of the 70 Tornado. Now, there's not much to that sketch, but you can see what's happening, right? Okay, this car in clay was the biggest thing I ever saw. And clay is not, when it's clay, it just looks big. It had no dynoc on it. And I thought it was 8 feet wide and about 8 feet long. And that was just the hood, you know. So it was just too much. And we did more finished sketches, okay. Having fun? Going the right way here? There we go. I usually have an assistant for this, but I don't today. These, there we go. And then these are detail sketches that we had to do for division when they came in, because you have to say what's carryover, what's new, how much it's going to cost. And I had a lot of fun doing these. Okay, Cadillac stuff, and of course Chevrolet. Now, but this is the crux of what I wanted to get at. This is a charity event. I'm jumping forward 40 years. And so 40 years since when I started. And we were just talking to Tom today about this race that we had. It was for a charity, okay? And this was 2004 and 2005. And in 2004, it was a contest against all the other studios in California up and down the coast. We had 17 studios out there. And the charity got us together and says, would you guys like to buy or build a product that races against your competition? We said, of course, why not? So everybody jumped in on it. And the first year that we did this was 2004, and it was like a soapbox derby contest where you go down a ramp, okay? And I think Nissan won that, didn't they?
I don't think we won it. Ours was the best.
Oh, it was the best. Now, designers are humble. You have to know that. Designers are real humble. So, this little sketch in the center, you see the white sketch? Okay. Now, in the studio, I would have our guys have a competition, and I chose the one that we were going to build. This happened to be Doug Frazier's, and I saw that middle sketch. I said, that doesn't look like a soapbox derby. How do you go down? He says, you go down head first. And I said, we got to build that. So we built it in our shop. Doug was in charge of the design, and then the whole studio gets involved in fabricating it and building it. And we had a good time building it. It was good. And the way the charity won money was by auctioning the cars off afterwards. Okay, and there wasn't much publicity about this at all. That was the strange thing. But the next year, you see the car here? Now, Blair Taylor is kneeling. He was the designer that we chose to follow through. And after we looked at the sketches in the studio, we said, okay, let's go forward with this. And the other guy is the head engineer. Now, we had like 15 guys in our studio, and not one guy can produce anything. Okay, it takes a team. But a team of disciplines, okay, different disciplines. And let me get another picture here. There we go. This was taken out at the airport near where our studio is. And we went from the sketch to a system called Alias, and Alias software. And we started Alias in our studio in 1987. And it's just another tool. But what it does, you create a database, and when you create the database, you then can share this database. At the same time, we shared it with our structural engineer and the packaging guy. So while the car was being built in Alias, our structural engineer was actually doing finite element analysis on the structure for rollover, because this puppy is going to go fast and we had to be safe. And we built a metal structure of it initially. And we went down the hill and we found out that it twisted because the back wheels were not wide enough. So we had to reestablish that. This event was held in Monterey, California, and it was a beautiful day. You have to know that we did 7 iterations on that particular design. And at that time, I was called from California, so I had to go to Sweden as director over there. And while I was there, I said, well, send over some databases, and we'll check it in the wind tunnel. Okay. Now, this is computerized wind tunnel, right? CFG. And they said, well, it'll work a lot better if you lengthen the front end and you cut the back end off. Now, I had this taper in the back that was pretty nice. So we ended up getting a coefficient of drag of 0.09, full size. You know how low that is? I mean, it's like being invisible. It's really low. And what you see here is our competition, and not all the cars are here, but this was a staging ground up at Monterey. We were supposed to go down the Corkscrew, and we did some testing down the Corkscrew at Laguna Seca, but the last minute we couldn't race down there, and this was like a day or two before because of insurance. So we went over to Jack's Run, which is I think the next hill over, and the run is like a half a mile down this track. So, but you can see we had Chrysler here, we had the green car was Oakley. And I love these models because you're building a model, but you're going to live in this model. You're going to drive it, you know. Okay. This gives you an idea of the size. This is one of our engineers from Sweden. He's Swedish now. This guy, if I think of a Viking, this guy could be a Viking, right? And he was the nicest guy and top engineer. Okay. This is what it's like in that machine as it's going to go downhill. And Blair was supposed to drive the car, but because of the weight restriction, because this car was made just like Fisher Body, had a width, length, height, limitations, right? So at the last minute, Cleve said, "I'll drive this," So we got in there, and he's used to driving cars. I don't think he knew what he was up against, though. It was because I'll show you here in just a second. But we had a good laugh here because we had all these models, probably 10, maybe 14 models that were being tested. And as you go down the hill, this is all gravity, right? So you start with the blocks, you pull the blocks out, and then you just go down the hill. The guy going the fastest kind of wins the race, right? Well, we had some practice runs, and we had the best of 3. And we'd go down, pick the car up, put it in the XC90, which our studio designed, and then we'd drive up the hill, and we'd wait, because everybody else trailered their cars. And we said, "No, this is pretty efficient. It's a Volvo way, So after this is what the race looked like. Here's this car coming down here, and it's still stable, but we're doing over 70 miles an hour. Can you now imagine that you're 1 inch off the ground, okay, and you're prone, right? 70 miles an hour. Sideways, yeah. Here's our studio right here. Now everybody in there took part in developing this car. We had graphics, we had color and trim, we had engineering. And I'm on the left there. I flew in from Sweden for this event, and it was really super. I like this as our lunch hour project because it was a wonderful journey. And this did not stop the regular work we had in the studio, and it got done just as well, right? So when you have something spiriting like that, it's just a neat journey, just really neat. So that was what I wanted to show you. And the last thing I want to show you is things keep going. Everything comes full circle. These are sketches I did for a project. You start with a sketch, and then from there you can go to the new tools. No problem. You can build a car. Once you have the database, you can make it work. This one here, we actually did deployable bumpers that came out before impact. We had working models, the whole thing. This car was ready for production. We had business to take care of. We had technical, and one reason why is because here's a tool we used. Whoops, one over here. This is the car that we did that I actually did an alias. So it's a wonderful tool, but what matters is the originality of the person designing. Okay, a tool is a tool. We're going to come up with even better tools in the future, but this is the journey that I took. I started with GM doing rough sketches with pen and ink, ended up doing cars on alias, and I have a finger that was out of joint for many years because of using the mouse a certain way. It took me a year after I retired to straighten it, But that's it. All I can say is that it's a pleasure to be here. I really enjoyed seeing the little models down there. I understand good craftsmanship, and I think you guys ought to give yourselves a hand. But really did a good job there.
I need the podium. Ladies and gentlemen, little did I realize that an event that happened to me 15 years ago would send me on such an interesting journey. I stand here before you today because of a promise I made to a Guildsman's father. The subject of this talk is how I became involved in the Fisher Body Craftsman Guild. Well, it was by restoring a Guildsman's cars to their original condition, as well as reintroducing the grand spectacle of this unique scholarship program known as the Fisher Body Craftsman Guild to the public, as well as current model builders. So I am here at this event representing the late Guildsman Ronnie Steinhilber. Now let me preface this by saying, I never entered the contest during its time, nor am I a Guildsman, because GM canceled it in 1968, and I had just turned 13. So I missed that train. I don't collect these models as some people do, but my wife Julie and I were the curators of her cousin's 5 Fisher Body Guild cars. So we are showcasing them at venues such as this in appreciation of the remarkable achievements that Ron and others like him aspired to do. So Ron's Guild career began in 1960, entering his first model, and he continued to enter each year until 1964, when he reached the cutoff age where he could no longer compete. So with that said, he entered 5 times, and he won 5 times, whether it be a state or regional or both. And in addition, he also won a styling award in 1962, which is in itself quite amazing. And that particular model is on display here this weekend. So my story begins upon receiving a note from Julie's father that her cousin Ron had sadly succumbed to cancer at age 55. So he was planning on giving moral support to the family by attending the memorial service that his brother, Ron's father Norman, was planning on Long Island. So Julie and I felt this would be a good way of paying tribute to Ronnie, as well as seeing some of her extended family that is widely scattered throughout the nation. So we packed the car and took a ferry to our final destination. Once we arrived in the Hamptons, we sought out the bed and breakfast, referred to as the Pink House, that Ron owned and operated. There we met up with her dad, Bud, Norman, and Ron's sons, who were preparing for the memorial service that next day. Norman was quite gracious host, all things considered, and showed us to our room. So he suggested we take a look around the B&B until the family came to a stopping point in the preparations. Ron was an artist, a sculptor, and in my opinion, a Renaissance man. So we saw a number of unusual art pieces scattered throughout the house, some of which he created and others which he had found. This is where I discovered that he had participated in the Fisher Body Craftsman Guild. While exploring the common area of the second floor, I happened to see some rather dusty, large-scale model cars on shelves in the corner of the room. And considering their less than perfect physical condition, they were quite striking. So being a model builder, I was pretty impressed with them and was wondering what they were, since I wasn't aware of the guild. So I asked Julie about them, and her response was priceless. Oh, he entered some contest years ago and he won. The end. So being the president of a model car club at the time, I thought, what a great opportunity to shoot a few pictures of these models for a show and tell at an upcoming meeting. So taking into consideration where we were and why we were there, I asked Julie, do you feel it would be disrespectful if I asked your uncle for permission to take pictures of these models? She said, look, just ask, all he could say is no. So we did, he said okay, and so off we were, preparing for a photo shoot outside on the patio under natural lighting. So during the photo session, Norman joined us, reliving all of the accomplishments of his son who entered these contests as a teen, winning every year, and attending the award ceremony in Detroit. He also told us that these cars were exhibited at the GM Pavilion at the 1965 New York World's Fair, which, by the way, is how some of the damage to these cars had occurred when the models were shipped back to Ronnie. So needless to say, I was quite impressed with this young man, what he had done to create these models and what he would continue to do year after year. Well, one by one, we photographed them, and all at that time I was thinking this would be the last time I would ever see these models again. never realizing what these things were going to, what was going to take place by the end of this weekend. So I mentioned to Norman that these cars, even in their current condition, were museum worthy. And they should end up in a place where they would be appreciated by other model builders as well as the general public. So the photo session came to a close, and back on the shelves these models went. The next day, the memorial service, which was an informal gathering of family and close friends, went off without a hitch. So the weekend came to a close. Norman was remarking about how he and Ron's sons would soon have to have their hands full emptying the house and preparing it for sale. Now, I know what a daunting task that could be, since I've done this same thing for clients. So at some point in the conversation, Norman says, you know, I thought long and hard, and I would like to give you my son's models, since I know you'll be able to fix them and you'll know what to do with them. Well, you can imagine how stunned I was by that statement. He knew I had shown interest in them, and I said he would entrust them to us, but I told him, look, I can't take your son's models, but I'll restore them and try to get them into your museum as long as you supply me with the photos of what they looked like in their original condition for reference. Little did I realize the series of events that would now be set in motion. So as we packed up to leave, I carefully wrapped each car in a beach towel to protect them and placed them in a cardboard box for our trip back to Boston. So once home, I examined and diagnosed what each car's problems were so I could hopefully repair them and bring them back to their original state. My plan was to repair, refinish, and remake the missing parts, keeping the models as original as possible, keeping in mind that these models were built by a teenager and should reflect his original skill set, and that I would not improve or change anything he did. Since I wasn't a stranger to auto restoration, I used that knowledge to carry out the task of cleaning and repairing 50-year-old paint, chipped fiberglass, and bright work that each car so badly needed. While awaiting for reference photos from the family, I used the internet to educate myself about this subject that I knew little about. I soon discovered how much of a big deal the national contest was in its day. Here's where I found Guildsman John Jacobus, who at the time was writing about the complete history of this unique contest. We exchanged emails, and he was enthused that I had taken an interest on the restoration of these Guild cars that were currently in our possession. So back in the home front, no pictures from the Ron's family. So my restoration basically came to a standstill. I knew key parts were missing, and I would need to recreate them using some reference. So about this time, the model club I was involved with was preparing for its annual model contest. I asked if I could have a display table to exhibit Ronnie's models as well as showing a brief history of the Guild. So Julie and I were able to accomplish this by assembling materials we had collected from the web and from family memorabilia to sort of test the waters and see if there would be any interest in a long-forgotten model contest from many years ago. So the day of the event, Julie manned the table answering questions while I was busy with our own model show activities. Well, as you may have guessed, the crowd's response was quite enthusiastic, even in the present disrepair of Ronnie's models. Then realizing that there was an interest in this subject, I tried envisioning and inventing what I thought would be the missing parts and what they would look like, but after this exercise I felt was the wrong direction to take. So I stopped. So around this time I was contacted by John Jacobus inviting Julie and I to bring her cousin's models to the 2004 Guildsmen reunion being held at the GM Tech Center in Detroit, but we declined due to work-related conflicts. 3 years later, we were invited again by John for another reunion exhibit, except this time it was to be held in August of 2008 in my own backyard at the Museum of Fine Arts in Boston. So this prompted me to contact Ron's sons once again, stating, I would like to complete the repairs to the models. For an upcoming show, could you please locate these pictures? It would help me greatly. So lo and behold, the pictures finally arrived in an email message a few weeks later. So using a magnifying glass, I examined the vintage photos to see what needed to be recreated. So I was off and running now, working on a deadline to complete the repairs while juggling a business, family, and life in general. I felt the same pressure as you Guildsmen felt to get not one but 5 cars completed for this exhibition. But I was no stranger working late nights, being a graphic designer, but I felt that there would be a point where I'd have to basically decide let's see, what gets completed and what doesn't. So 4 out of the 5 cars were completed in time, with 3 of them being accepted for display at the Museum of Fine Arts, along with other Guildsmen who attended that venue. So Ron's sons attended and got to see the cars again, but in their restored state, as well as seeing the other participants' cars on display again. Some of them for the first time to the general public. So it was quite a learning experience for me, speaking with the Guildsmen there who kindly offered their advice on some of the obstacles I had run into with the restorations I was doing. So I'm happy to report that Julie and I were thrilled to be able to contact Norman, telling him his son's cars were on display here at a famous museum, even for a short time. And that I had kept my promise to him, and in return he told us, don't return the cars, I want you to keep them. And we would, in turn, would someday find them a good home. So in closing, thank you, John, and thank you, Guildsmen, for allowing me to be here tonight.
Thank you, Tony. I know it's late, and I'd like you to do one thing for me. Just stand up, stretch, and sit back down. We'll get you out as soon as possible. It's an old education trick. If you don't want to get up, it's okay, too. All right, back down. It's enough. Okay. Hey, listen, it was a late November day in New England. Okay, you know the time. Leaves are turning. 3 brothers, 3 sons really, are in school. We're coming home at night. It's a regular night. My mother and my grandmother, who lived with us for 20 years in the kitchen, Italian family. And the family night meal was an important event. We came home because my brother Jerry was talking about school and going to high school and college. And my father stopped in the middle of the conversation. I'll never forget it. He said, boys, I can give you a roof over your head. I can give you food on the table. But I cannot pay for you to go to college. That was it. That was it. He was a toolmaker. Making maybe $100 a month. My mother was a factory worker. There was nothing. There was no money on the table. I'm here to celebrate the families who helped those Guild boys be successful. They were good, but they were only as good as the family and the people who supported them. So we proceeded to look for ways to make money. My father was a toolmaker. He had a little cottage industry in the basement. We watched him make tools, hub and die. You know that whole scene. And one day my brother Jerry comes home and says, hey, I heard about the Fisher Body Craftsman's Guild. Can I try it? And my parents were excited because, again, there was no money. And yet they also had 3 boys who were sick. We had asthma. Back in the early 50s, there was no hope for you. We couldn't go out and play baseball like the rest of the kids. My brother was trying to play the accordion. Can you imagine an Italian family when the oldest son's playing Lady of Spain? So it's Lady of Spain or the Fisher Body Craftsman's Guild. I think we'll go with the Fisher Body Craftsman's Guild. So my father bought my brother a piece of balsa wood, and the rest is history. It started in 1955. Okay. I was a little guy. It took me years before I could enter it, but I watched my brother build his first car, and he got $50. That was like gold. That was half what my father would make on a whatever, time. So we proceeded to get involved. My brother Gene got involved. He's right there. He knows the story. And I just kept watching. And we're fortunate because they supported us in anything we wanted to do to make a car. It became we were possessed. We were in competition with each other, the same age. We made our own cars. We shared ideas. And my father, being the toolmaker he was, would come in once in a while and say, hey, you guys can, if you want, you can use my lathe. But I got to show you how to use it. And here's some files, and I'll give you all the brass you can waste and use, and we could make pieces. But all during that time, it was a family effort. Do your homework. And then downstairs in the basement. We were the boys in the basement. The tap on the floor. Time to go to bed. And years and years and years. And we knew as brothers that we needed to do something different because we had competition in New England. We had some real strong guys making cars. And we knew there was one thing that we wanted to try to do, and that was make the interiors. And we wanted to make something so that we can see inside the interior rather than just making it blacked out, if you know what I mean. And so we tried all kinds of ways. Gene was the first successful one in 1960 with a poured job, poured plastic, the resin. It wasn't clear enough. Couldn't see what you could not see the detail he did on the inside. It's downstairs, you can take a look at it. And finally, one night at the supper table, my father said, guys, why don't you just try and do a hub and die? Which is what he was doing with his tool cottage industry. Hub and die, poof, poof, poof. Okay. And that's where the idea came from. I made the mold the following year, made the hub and die, but the family made it happen. Now visualize this. My mother gave up her kitchen table. Imagine that. Italian mother saying, here's the table, put it against the stove, put the stove on to 180 degrees, put your model inside the stove, the plastic piece, but here's the key. Jerry, you're not taking the drill press from downstairs and putting it on the table. We had a drill press on our kitchen table for months as we tried to figure out how to draw the plastic so it wouldn't snap, bubble, contort, whatever. And finally, one night, after supper, the Italian family take the dishes off the table around the drill press. She said, okay, let's go. Mother opens that was her job. Her job was important. She opened the oven door. My other brother grabbed the unit from inside the oven, pulled it against the drill press. Right, Gino?
Yeah.
And every night we watched the bubbles and the stretches and the cracks. And then one night, the Lord shined. We're in the city of Lords, aren't we? Something the Lord shined. Okay. And it happened. We made a plastic top. I cut it. We made several after that. But it was the family. I cannot just say it was Tony Simone who won that $5,000. It was the family that encouraged me to make it and to give up the kitchen table and to bring that drill press up from the basement onto the table. Anyway, that's my message. As we look at all the guys up here and all the stories, there were thousands of boys who had the same story, who were in the basement, in the garages, who were in barns and everything else. You read John's book, you see the stories. And I realized one thing, all of that. We were successful because we were together. When Gino won in 60, I won in 61, first National Junior with Ron Will. We mortally connected forever. My brother Jerry never won. Please look at his car downstairs. It's 1962, black one. And we forced him to build that car. Said, you're not giving up. You're going to make one more car. I don't want to make one more car. You're going to make one more car. Well, it's going to have to be different. I said, okay, whatever. So he rescaled all of what Fisher Body had. And those of you who came after 62 were probably beneficiaries of his open concept because he broke the mold. And they basically disqualified him. You got nothing. You got a trip to Detroit, another jacket, another plaque. And they said to him, Jerry, listen, beautiful car, wonderful car. Talk to us after the competition. We want to talk to you. You got talent. So we're going to get a little bit into the politics of what happens in the world of car design. Goes home, he's happy. We're not happy. We hear it on radio, my brother loses. And I say, what happened? He says, oh, don't worry, I'm going to go to Detroit, get an interview. They like what I did. We're going to get a job, hopefully. Well, he went to Detroit. 0. They didn't want it. I said, Gene, Jerry, you're a wonderful guy, you've got talent, but you don't have that degree from the Art Center School up front. Discovered she came home and drew many, many serendipitous situations. He got a letter one day in the mail, and I won't go into the details of it, from Ford Motor Company. Please come for an interview. Ooh, he said, where did this come from? He had no idea. Brought his car to Ford Motor Company, opened it up, job. Thunderbird Division, 5 years. Interior design. Okay? It's amazing what could happen. But in those 5 years, though, he said, guys, because we're coming up the line. We're ready. We got the scholarships. We're ready to hold. He says, guys, you don't want to come to this business. It's cutthroat. Well, maybe he was right, maybe he was wrong, but whatever the situation was, Gene and I turned our careers around and went a different way. Gene, 47 years right now, am I correct? Vice President Merrill Lynch, Providence. I put 46 years in education. Domestic and international schools. And I've seen a lot of things. But Fisher Body gave us the skills. That's the bottom line. Perseverance, patience, finish the job, stick-to-itiveness. We use it all the time in education. There's no other word. Okay? And therefore, that's the story I want to offer to you. With all the wonderful things we see, we've got to remember the families that happen. And gentlemen, you and your models inspire me, because I hope you get out there and talk to the kids today. After 46 years in education, I can tell you what they're missing is the ability to use their hands. There are skills and jobs out there that they need. We need it. We lost our way in education. Everyone wants to go to school and get all the knowledge in here, and they think they're going to get a job and be successful. No, 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 no. You have to use your hands at times, many times, and not just the thumbs. The text. Ladies and gentlemen, please get out there and tell the kids you don't all have to go to college right away. You can get a job, use your hands, get some skills, because you can go to distant learning, you can go to community colleges and get it later. We didn't have that back then. We have it now. That's my crusade. That's my message to you. Please tell the kids they got to do something with their hands. Thank you.
Mine be pretty short. I didn't go into the design business. I was actually in college when I finally got success in the Guild, and was already studying physics. Didn't know what I wanted to do, so I went in the Navy for 3 years. That's the best decision I ever made. Then I went to graduate school in nuclear engineering, went to work for an electric utility, got in the environmental field. That's what I did for 40 years until July 2013. I currently live in Henderson, Nevada, right outside Las Vegas. Prior to getting into the Craftsman's Guild in '61, I built thousands of model kits. I don't know how many I built. All kinds. I've always wanted to redesign them, but that never came out too well. And I'll tell you, I never built a single model that had the quality and the detail that I see downstairs in your models. It's just fantastic. I remain in awe at the skill you people have. And it's so evident in those models. So I feel very honored that you've allowed us to be part of this fantastic event. I was in the Craftsman's Guild initially for 4 years, '61 to '64, from the state of Texas, and won state awards each year. Kind of didn't think I could win anything. In '64, I went to third place after having been at first place in '63. That was just a real drop. And so I got very discouraged. I was getting ready to go into college. And I thought, I don't have time for this. I've tried 4 years. This is all I'm going to do. I mean, I'm not going to be a designer. I'm going to be a scholarship winner. So I got out of it. And I soon missed the excitement of the Guild and what it did for me, whatever it was. I couldn't describe it at the time. So I thought, all right, I need to get back in this. But I can't do what I just did before and expect a different result. Einstein's definition of insanity, right? I said, I've got to do something different. I need to just rethink what I'm doing. And I got some advice from different people, and I won't go into it. But I ended up changing virtually everything, from the way I designed the car all the way until the finishing. And it turned out to be successful. And that was 1966, and I went beyond the state award, and I got the regional award, which was the thing I really wanted, which was that trip to Detroit. That model is downstairs. So once I got there, I saw the 39 other regional winners, and I had the good fortune of the first place national winner that year, a guy named Ovid Ward, who worked at Chrysler for a while. Ovid was my roommate in the hotel for the 3 or 4 days. And I don't think I let him sleep. I think we just stayed up all night talking cars. And he was way ahead of me. He was already in Art Center College, which made me think, what am I trying to do here? But I came back in '67 with a whole lot of new ideas, got regional again, and that time got a scholarship, which was a real surprise to me, because I never thought I would get there. Throughout my 40-year career in the electric power industry, I found a lot of the Guild skills just came to play all the time. Planning, attention to detail, execution. I was in project management, projects for a long time. But I think the experience that benefited me the most in my life and in my career was dealing with that big setback and that big disappointment and being ready to quit. And then realizing, step back, rethink everything, give it another try. And I went to work in 1973, and I used that kind of stuff. And it wasn't until like 2004 that the company I worked for all those years introduced a new process we're going to have called charter teams, where we're going to step back when we don't meet goals, and we're going to examine the process and recommit ourselves to a new effort. I thought, okay, I had this licked 40 years ago. That's what I was doing. I'll close real quickly by giving you my perspective on the Guild, which I really didn't develop until just a few years ago. As we started doing these exhibits, I started finally digging the cars out of the closet, which was where they stayed for years. What I began to think of is kind of obvious now, but at the time it wasn't so obvious. As I think all of you will agree that have seen the models that the Guild have brought here, the designs in these models are very advanced, even by today's standards, even though they were created, as we said, 40, 50, 60 years ago, which is pretty amazing in itself. But it occurred to me one day, just dawned on me, these designs were not created by professional auto designers. They were created by high school kids. They weren't built by professional model makers. They were built by teenagers in their basements and their garages, using a lot of hand tools and a lot of elbow grease. And it made me, the question that hit my mind was, what kind of a program can take a normal American teenager with their impatience and their impulsiveness and their resistance to discipline, and to sit down and visualize a car design that 50 years later is going to be advanced compared to cars designed by professional designers, and to build a precision model to very strict GM specifications. I could only conclude that it just had to be a program so unique and so special that it would inspire you if you committed yourself to it and dedicated yourself to it. It would inspire these kids to manifest creative design skills, ingenuity, and discipline that most didn't even know they had within them. For thousands of kids, the Guild shaped their future and impacted their lives. I often wish I could meet the handful of people that were at GM in the 1920s that started this program and ask them, do you have any idea what you were starting? I don't think they did, but we're all certainly glad that they did. Again, thank you very much for letting us be part of this wonderful.
My name is Jeff Jones. I've got a similar story to these people up here. I entered the Guild 5 times. I was inspired to enter the Guild by the ad that they showed of Tony Simone and Ron Will with the 2 winning models in 1961. I was in like 7th grade then. I figured in 8th grade, I think I can do that too. Those guys did it, I can do it. My story, John mentioned the progression where, you build your first model and you do pretty well, and then you start progressing up, getting better and better. Well, I had that progression too. My first model, I won nothing. But on my second model, I won nothing. On my third model, I won nothing. But on my fourth model, I won nothing. And then in my senior year of high school, I built my 5th model, and I really put a lot of time and effort to it, and I finally won nothing. So I'm different than these people because these are all winners. I mean, these are the heroes that I used to see in the magazines, the promotional magazine articles in the model car magazine that you all see. I also was avid plastic model builder. I relate to what you guys are doing. I won a local contest in the second Revell Pactor contest, and I've got one of those trophies, and that's one of my treasures. And my first model was kind of conventional models. All 5 of my models are downstairs. The second model, they came out with the open division. At that time, I just discovered Ed Roth, and he twisted my mind. And so I went into the open division, and all my twisted models are the last 4 I did there. Like I say, I didn't win anything in the Guild monetarily or prize-wise, but I won. It's one of the best experiences I ever had. And I tell everybody, I just grieve that I couldn't give this to my sons and grandsons and granddaughters and daughters. They don't have this opportunity. And as Tony says, these kids are missing this. I mean, to dedicate a year of your life as a teenager to a higher goal. You have something higher, not just winning Pac-Man. This is a higher goal, and even if you don't get a prize, you finish something. And that's kids today. I see it in my kids, and I try to inspire them to have the year-long commitment to something that they don't have anymore. They just don't understand what I'm talking about. So that makes me sad.
Well, how do you get there?
How do you get there? I don't know. I thought about, I work in the oil business. The Guild inspired me to go on and get my college degree. I got a mechanical engineering degree. And I've been a petroleum engineer for 45 years, very successful in the oil business. I thought about going to oil companies and say, how about you guys the auto business is kind of up and down. The oil business has the ability to fund something like this. How about the oil business doing something like this? But I don't think a Fisher Body Craftsman's Guild model will work any longer because they won't do anything with their hands. They'll go out and design something on a computer, go to solid modeling, they'll do computer stuff. And like Tony says, these people know how to learn to cut a finger. And they don't know how to do that. Yeah, you're a very good cutter, I know that. He's got leg injuries, arm injuries.
Even using the computer, even if you had them use contemporary tools to these guys, there must be some way that they can apply that to what those higher goals you're talking about.
Yes.
Because all I see is people at restaurants, 2 guys over here, 2 girls over here, and they're
Yes, that's all you see.
That's all you see everywhere.
I don't know. I'm not smart enough. I'm not smart enough to come up with the answer.
Well, but it's a good
I,
question, and
yes.
I've heard 2 or 3 people talk about that.
Yes.
And it's one thing that I think is completely lacking in youth today. There is not that higher goal.
Well, you can look at the age of the people in GSL. It's all people like us. You guys understand. You're still doing it. I'm still doing it. I'm still building these silly models and spending a year. Okay. I'm going to interview every one of your wives. I'll see if you get the same answer I do. But yeah, there has to be something. I'm not smart enough to do it, but like I say, Tony said, we're
But you're
losing
smart enough to
something in
bring
this
it up.
country.
And a lot of guys have.
Yep.
And it can't just be old guys that are dying that's doing this stuff. You
Yeah.
know? I mean, that whole experience as a kid.
Well, I tried it with my son, and my son and I built a 1936 Pontiac 4-door sedan from the ground up, built the engine, built the transmissions, automatic transmissions, built the engines, did everything. It didn't catch. He didn't catch on. My grandson and I just finished building a 1959 El Camino. We tore it down to the bare chassis, refinished the chassis, built the front end, built the transmission. We wired it, upholstered it, painted it. We did everything. He knows how to build an entire car.
Make no mistake, you did affect a change
Yes.
in those kids.
Well,
No question. What you did
that's what
made a
Tony
difference.
says. All of us need to go out and work with kids. If you're not working with a kid somewhere, you're not doing your job. I mean, that's what we owe to our kid. You have the skills. We have the skills. We need to pass it on.
That's right.
Sometimes go like Home Depot or Lowe's on a Saturday when they got kids building birdhouses, or Lowe's has a NASCAR kit. And you see kids with their parents in there doing that, but they're 5 and 6 and something like that. And then I think another thing is that, like when the Pinewood Derby stuff, parents got so involved in it that the kids weren't.
It ruined it, yeah.
Because they wanted their kid to
Yeah,
win. So
yeah, the Pinewood Derby turned into, like you say, parents building really nice cars, and the kids sit there watching.
They don't know how to fail. If a kid fails today, they'll give up.
We don't allow them
and
to
go
fail.
do something.
We don't allow kids to fail.
In answer to the question, perhaps one thing that would bring youth involved in it, just a general question. I have to mention a 4-letter word, IPMS. A little chuckle here and there. I don't know how many people are involved with their local chapters or with their regions. Again, I consider you guys to be the best of the best. I belong to several IPMS chapters and have gone to contests nationally and internationally, spouting the fact that something like this exists to all the rivet counters who still think these things roll around on metal axles and are toys. But, to their saving grace, the IPMS chapters I've always been involved with always have something at their meetings or their contests called a make and take. They involve their kids. We have a room that we have snapped together kids. Just briefly, we have a room where we have snapped together kids. The companies, the model companies, sponsor this and give us the kits at a reduced price or free, or we get donations. And when people are coming into the contest or people just happen to walk in, we grab those kids and we have adult supervision and we say, come in here, we've got models, you put this thing together, you get to take it home. That's how we're getting the next generation through the IPMS. I'm passing it back on to GSL.
Anyway, to sum it up, I haven't quit building stuff, crazy stuff like this. My current project is, you know Ed Roth. As Mysterion is gone, I'm building a reproduction of the Mysterion. I know that Dave Shooten did a great job on a reproduction a few years ago. I think I've studied it out more. I've got more details in it, and mine's going to drive. I might kill myself in it, but I'm going to drive that thing. I'm going to picture of Mysterion driving down the road.
Yeah, first of all, I want to thank John for letting me participate in this today. And this is really sort of a homecoming for me because I grew up here in the Salt Lake Valley. I was born in a little community south of Salt Lake City, and it's really great to come back here, and it brings back a lot of memories. And I treasure my guild experiences. I had the opportunity to build 7 models over a period from 1957 to 1963. And I had both success and failure. And you learn, as has been pointed out before, you almost learn as much, if not more, from your setbacks and your failures. And Jeff Jones says he never won, but in a way he did win because you should see his models downstairs. The 5 models. I mean, I just shook my head. I said, I can't believe that. You never won with those models. I thought they were national award winners, 2 of them that he built down there. And when he told me he didn't even win an honorable mention, at least my first model, which was really a crude attempt, built in '57, was an honorable mention winner, but probably because there wasn't any competition. I mean, they probably didn't even give out all the honorable mentions, and so I won by default. But it was really it's almost comical because I tried to build it within the context of it was junior high. I was a young junior high guy, and I did it in a graphic industrial arts class that I was taking in junior high. And I got the naive notion, I'm going to try to build it out of fiberglass. Because one of the national award winners that previous year had, I think he won the top junior award in 1957, had built his out of fiberglass. And I was so impressed with the way the car looked and everything else. I can't remember the guy's name. But I thought, that'll be easier than trying to carve it out of a block of wood. Boy, I was so wrong. I mean, that was the most awful stuff to work with. It was a crude effort, and I tried to finish this thing off. Finished the finishing, and it was. I threw the rest of it together in a month. I didn't throw it away, but I threw it together in a month, and that what got me my honorable mention. But what really caused me to say, hey, what are these cars supposed to look like? They had a big exhibit at a department store in downtown Salt Lake City, and I saw that's the way the cars, that's the way they should be built. I mean, it was the winners from 1957, and I thought, geez, they were, I mean, I was just blown away. And so I took that as a lesson, and I knew that you had to spend the better part of a year to really get it right, to start from the basic design and get it all the way down to the finished thing. And so it did pay off for me. I won region the next year. I went from honorable mention to region, and I won 3 regional trips in a row. And then the third year, I won a styling scholarship, 1960, and that was the zenith for me. And I thought, gosh, the next year I ought to be able to, go to the next level. But I never made the next level. Actually, I dropped. I never won another trip to Detroit. I won state awards, but the thing that kept me from going back to Detroit after I'd had the 3 regional trips to Detroit, and I thought the subsequent models were better than the one that I'd won the styling scholarship with. Especially my last entry, which is downstairs, which was my white bubble top. That was only a state award winner. And one of you mentioned the DeMura brothers. It was Bobby DeMura that kept me from. That's the story of my failure. But what really, but I really treasure. I mean, as I say, I'm more proud of that first state winner that I built in 1963 than I am any other model I ever built. And it taught me perseverance. It taught me, overcoming adversity. And it really benefited me. I had this dream that maybe I'd grow up to be an automobile designer. But when I got back there and I saw these guys, so many of these guys were so much better than me. I was sort of, I lacked self-confidence to believe otherwise. And so that kind of diverted me away from a career in automobile design. And I was kind of insecure. And so I went a different route. I ended up going, like Tony over there, I went into education. I got a PhD and I taught, became a college professor. And I attribute the Guild for helping me to deal with unforeseen, unexpected situations. Because in education, as Tony will tell you, we always deal with the unexpected, whether it's in the classroom or whether it's outside the classroom. And my Guild experience, because you deal with the unexpected when you're building those Guild models, believe me. And then it also taught me perseverance, and the perseverance paid off not only in sticking with my career in education, but in becoming a writer. I've written a number of books. I'm a historian. I do historical research. In fact, the nice thing about being here in Salt Lake is my field of expertise, I've written quite a bit on Mormon history. And so coming to Salt Lake gave me the opportunity to go to the various collections of Mormon documents. Today I was up at the Church Historical Archives up on North Temple, and so I sum this up. I just really appreciate and grateful for this homecoming, being back in Salt Lake, even though, as I said in the title of my paper, I wanted to grow up to be an automobile designer, but I didn't quite make it there. But thank you.
Our next speaker is Jim Huber.
Thank you. It's interesting to go downstairs and see the Fisher Body Craftsman Guild models. I just want to make a brief thing here that when I was 18 years old when I was hired by Revell to design model car kits and other things. And people have asked me, well, how did you know what to do when you got there? And today, in seeing all of these models down there, I realized that my participation, however slight it was in the Guild competition, is what really prepared me to be able to go to Revell out of the blue as an 18-year-old kid without any training or anything else, and walk in and be handed responsibility for designing their kits. And what happened was when I was 13, 14 years old, and actually when I was a kid, I always loved cars, so I built all kinds of models. I built airplanes and ships and cars and everything. And in the early 50s, the plastic kits started to come out. Before that, you had to buy an Ace model car kit of a 49 Ford, and basically the instructions in it were, remove every piece of wood that doesn't look like a 49 Ford. You got a block of balsa wood and a drawing in a box. That was it, you know. So I tried those. But anyway, as the years progressed, I found out about the Fisher Body Craftsman's Guild probably around 1954, 55. And 54, I was still in junior high school, and then 55, I started high school. And so I subscribed to all of the newsletters, and every time they came, I would sit down and I would read and reread all of the instructions that they provided for guild members to build their cars. And because I wanted to be a car stylist, I wanted to go to Detroit and design cars. I thought this was a pretty important thing to do. So I started construction of 2 different models. The first one I never finished. The second one I never finished, but I got a lot closer. And the second one I was building just before I ended up at Revell. And it was an amazing experience to start with a block of wood, a piece of pine, and start whacking at it with a razor saw and a carpenter saw and everything else. And my parents were divorced, and I lived with my dad alone, and I kept buying all these model kits and parts, and my father kept telling me, he says, I don't know why you're wasting all your money on this. It'll never amount to anything. And to make a long story short, 6 weeks after I started working at Revell, I was hired, and I was being paid by the hour. Well, I really wanted to get things done, so I was coming to work at 7, 8 o'clock in the morning and staying till 2 at night, 2 in the morning. And after 6 weeks, and I was on an hourly, and I got a phone call that said, could you please come to the personnel office? So I went down to the personnel office and went in and sat down. He called me in his office and he closed the door and he says, we have a problem here. And I said, well, I might as well just get up and walk out. You know, what's going on here? He said, we have a problem here. He says, you're coming in here early in the morning and you're not leaving until 2 in the morning. He says, we are paying you a lot of money. We can't afford you. And I thought, well, it's the end of this, you know. And so, and my father had been in the airline industry. He spent his whole life in it, and he was an executive in the industry. And my father had always told me this would never amount to anything. So we're sitting there in his office, and he finally looks at me and he says, we've got to solve this problem. And he says, so here's how we're going to solve it. We're going to put you on salary, and we're going to give you a little raise. Well, the raise he got me brought me up to more than my father was making after a lifetime in the airline industry. I was 19 and 1 and 6 weeks, something like that. But it was the guild, the learning that I had from it, and the skills that I learned from all of those, the magazines and everything that they sent to me. And when I left Revell in 1965, Revell was switching over to slot racing. Some of my interests were changing. I didn't want to do slot racing, and we had some great programs that were coming along in kits, and they never happened because of that. So I finally left the company. And when I left, I just literally walked out the door. I didn't clean my desk out or anything. And behind, I left all of my Fisher Body Craftsman's Guild stuff, except the models. My father remarried when I left, and so all of that went out in the trash. But so all of that paperwork and all of the folders and brochures and everything that I had were left there. So about, I don't know, 7, 8 years ago, Bob Paith called me from Portland. And he said, hey, Jim, he says, I've got all this stuff out in the garage that I dished out, dug out at Revell when I left. And he says, I've got some stuff for you. So he came down here with all these boxes full of stuff, and we went up in the room over here. And he says, just go through the box. And I went through it, and in it, he had fished out of the filing cabinets all of my Fisher Body stuff, which I still have. And so it was like a miracle. And then 7 years ago, I was visiting a guy over in, or went to visit a guy over in Nevada, or California rather, who was a metal worker and built full-size cars out of aluminum and aircraft. He built the Hughes Racer and all this stuff and worked at Harrah's. And on the way over there, I couldn't find him, but I ran into this other guy who owned a big company there, and to make a long story short, he gave me a tour of his company, then he took me upstairs to his office. And he walked me through everything, and was going into detail about this and this. And as we walked into this room over here, I could see a wooden crate. And I knew what the crate was. It was a Fisher Body Craftsman's Guild coach. Okay, in the box, sealed. So finally, he took me over there, and he handed me a screwdriver, and he says, this box was built by my father in 1931. He was living in what is now a ghost town in Nevada. He was 15 years old, and he built the Fisher Body Craftsman's Guild coach and entered it. And he won first place for the state of Nevada with $100 in gold as his prize in 1931. Okay. And meanwhile, I'm taking the screws out of the lid and lifting the lid off the box, and I'm shaking and almost in tears. And I look inside, and here's this beautiful coach in pieces. And he just said one thing to me. He says, "Can you restore this for me?" It was one of the most emotional moments of my whole life. I looked at that and I thought, how can I possibly, do this? And he said, I just want you to make it like he built it with his level of craftsmanship. So we took all the parts out and laid them on the table, and I said, okay, I'll take it on. And I took it home, and it was 2 years. Every 2 or 3 months, I'd open the box up and look at it, and I would shake and I would walk away. I didn't quite know where to start. So, like taking over the kitchen table like you did, okay? I finally decided, and I kept calling him, telling him I was, making some progress here and there when there was nothing going on. And so I finally said, okay. And my shop was still under construction in the garage, and so I told my wife, I says, I'm going to be taking over the dining room table for the next 4 months. And she says, what? 4? And I said, I'm going to restore the coach. And she says, oh, do it. But there was no drill press on the table. There were racks of paint. There were all this stuff. So I laid all the parts out, and then I just started working on them one by one by one. And over a period of 4 months, I finally put this thing back together again. But I had to build it to his father's 15-year-old level of craftsmanship, living in what is now a ghost town in Nevada in 1930 to 31. And as I was getting ready, and I had to remake a lot of the parts out of brass and using his original techniques to do this thing and put it all together. And some of his craftsmanship was on the crude side, but it was amazing that somebody his age in that time could have built what he built. It was an amazing project. A week ago, I found a picture of it, and I wanted to bring it this morning, and I cannot find it. If I can find it tonight, I'll bring it up. But so anyway, I got down to the point of painting the coach, and it was painted in the robin's egg blue of the Craftsman's Guild's coaches. But I felt I wanted to add my touch to it. So I mixed up some royal blue paint and painted it with a large brush with the same kind of brush strokes that his father had done. And I put it finished it, put it in the box, and I took the train to Colima, California. The model had gone to Detroit on those tracks in 1931. And when he took the trip to Detroit, he was on those tracks. So we got to Colima, he met me there. He had all of his employees in his business. They took the afternoon off, they had a huge barbecue, he invited his friends up. And then we had an unveiling of the coach. Both of us were in tears by the time we got to opening it up. And it had this brilliant royal blue paint job on it. It was really a gorgeous color. They should have all been that color, in my opinion. But I gave it to him, and the next time I went over there to California, he had built this huge, I don't know if you want to call it a shrine or a memorial to his father. and he had pictures and everything, and the coach was in a beautiful case. And I had made a baseboard out of beautiful dark blue velvet for it to sit on. But to have had a chance to participate, I finally finished my Craftsman's Guild model.
Anyway, that concludes our seminar. Hope that you enjoyed it. Thank you for coming. Thank you, Guildsmen, for your wonderful presentations.